Pod Boys Wrestlemania edition, coming at you from the Barclays Center in New York City, getting ready for the main event. I'm the animal Matista Van Rossum.
My name is Charles Rodman. I go by Ben Sheet sometimes.
I'm out of my element. I'm Cleveland Mosier.
And joining us this week, all the way from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Quin Voet! Longtime listeners of the show may remember Quinn from our episode on Piranha 3D from about this time last year.
This movie is definitely not Piranha 3D.
It's not Piranha 3D, but Quinn flew all the way from Milwaukee to join us in Durham, North Carolina for WrestleMania weekend.
Y'all gotta respect
Just
that
to watch pro wrestlers versus
Just to watch pro wrestlers versus zombies. For those who maybe don't know, we all share a love of wrestling.
Some more than others.
Some more than others. Quinn is our eldest wrestling friend, the boy who's been watching that shit for the longest, and Cleveland is our little wrestling baby.
Sweet babby boy, that's me.
So yeah, it's WrestleMania weekend. We're getting ready for the excitement and the pizzazz, and so we decided that fuck it. Let's watch a wrestling-related horror movie.
This is the only one that we could find.
We didn't have,
one of three.
We didn't have many to choose from. We had some choices of horror films that wrestlers have been in, like Mayor Kane and See No Evil and See No Evil 2.
If you count They Live, I guess.
Yeah, Rowdy Piper and the
Who
John Carpenter
also
classic
starred
They Live.
in this movie.
Yeah, but this is the only like kayfabe wrestling movie. It is Pro Wrestlers versus Zombies. We
watched it.
We had
Have you ever imagined what a porno would be like if they replaced all the porn scenes with wrestling?
That's what it was.
There were still some porn scenes, though, in the movie.
And then it was all directed by Neil Breen.
Yeah.
This movie was
rough.
Quote unquote written and directed by auteur Cody Knotts. I say quote unquote written and directed because I don't know if you can really say that there was any writing done in this movie or really any directing. This is like The Room of wrestling movies.
Oddly enough, it's also the Citizen Kane of wrestling movies, considering how many wrestling movies there actually have been.
Yeah, not very many. Fuck, where do we begin with Pro Wrestlers versus Zombies?
Well, obviously with the
beginning.
quote that starts the
Oh,
movie.
this is the quote. At the beginning of the movie, there's a quote, and it says, "It's okay to kill someone as long as it's in the wrestling ring."
It says in something like in a wrestling ring is the only place that you can kill someone and get away with it.
And if you remember that in the context of the movie throughout, then it works in a way.
And it's also just like patently untrue.
yeah. Murder is still illegal.
Murder is still murder, even if you kill somebody in the wrestling ring. This movie stars many great wrestlers, such as the late great Rowdy Piper, the franchise Shane Douglas,
which probably a lot of people have not heard of, but
Yeah.
I know you guys really haven't.
I wasn't super familiar with him.
Shane Douglas was this wrestler who wrestled in WWE for a year as a teacher. He was Dean Douglas, the evil teacher.
Oh my god.
And,
amazing.
but he was always the franchise Shane Douglas, and he was mostly like in ECW, and then he had like a run in WCW, and for the last 18 years, he's been doing like high school gyms.
And this movie. There's a bit part with Matt Hardy, and an even smaller bit part with Kurt Angle.
And a lot of indie guys.
And a lot of indie
no one
guys.
have ever heard of. And a gay porn star.
Yeah. We'll get to that. One of the most shocking things for me about this movie is that it came out in 2015.
Man, does it not
14.
look like it?
2014. I assumed based on like the cover and the premise that this was something that came out in like 2003.
Well,
generous.
I mean, the
I mean, yeah, like
aesthetics
98.
and general misogyny of the movie scream like 2003, 2004, honestly.
Yeah, like this is a movie that I think would be embarrassing by like film school standards.
This movie would be embarrassing by porn standards.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, yeah.
And it honestly just made me wonder, like, how they got these people into this movie. Like, Shane Douglas, I get it a little bit, but it's like Kurt Angle and Matt Hardy, really confusing how they ended up in this movie. And honestly,
I could kind of see Matt Hardy because if you know who Matt Hardy is, he's a very wacky guy. He likes doing a lot of wacky shit.
right, but
So I could see someone going, "Hey Matt, you want to do this movie? It features zombies and pro wrestling." And I
Was
could totally.
this during the TNA era for both of
Yeah.
them?
I think Matt was doing some shots for TNA, but he was actually, I think he was in ROH like the year before.
this was before the Broken Hardys gimmick.
Yeah.
This is when he was still, what, Big Money Matt?
He was just Matt Hardy or Big Money Matt.
But it's like you said, it's weird because he is like he's always such like a goofy character, and I was going into this movie expecting like wacky Matt Hardy antics, and there is really none of that. I would say he's one of the most awkward performances in the whole movie.
He was always kind of like a sleazebag, but he was like,
Right. Well, most of
But he
his
was-
part in the movie was making out and having sex with his real life girlfriend,
And
now
now
wife,
yeah.
Rebby Sky, which was like really weird and sleazy,
unnecessary.
unnecessary. Well, yeah, and that's just scratching the surface. The thing about the Roddy Piper character for me is we should first mention that it was originally written for Mick Foley. I'm not sure how they would have gotten Mick Foley for this either, and they obviously didn't. And the fact that they got Roddy Piper really just makes me more sad than anything because, like, I know he started wrestling again in his 40s after retiring because he had, like, no money.
And it's the
He was
movie.
broke.
The movie almost mirrors kind of that because he's doing these weird redneck mudlot independent show shots.
Yeah,
and it's like
right.
50s, and he talks about. He's like, yeah, well, since I was a wrestler and we weren't really good at saving money, like I still have to do this. Like he even mentions that in the movie, which is kind of
It's
sad.
weird. I saw an interview with the director, and like it seems like the whole cast was kind of his B choice for casting. Like,
Well, come on, Shane Douglas is definitely not an A choice.
well, yeah, of course. But like he was trying to get Mick Foley to be the Roddy Piper character. There's Charles Rodman,
Thomas
the
Rodman.
fake
Thomas
Dennis
Rodman,
the
yeah.
fake Dennis Rodman.
the fake Dennis Rodman. Apparently, they were super close to getting Terry Funk in the movie, but instead
Really?
they had
I did not hear about that.
who's the old guy?
Oh, Hacksaw Jim
Hacksaw.
Duggan. We forgot to
Yeah.
mention Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Yeah, that was originally going to be
Which
played
I met
by.
Hacksaw once.
They,
Oh,
that
really?
was,
He's a
that was
very nice
originally
man.
going to be played by Terry Funk, but
That actually
they
would
couldn't
have
get
been
him.
awesome.
I thought that surely, like, if they were gonna get like actually recognizable name wrestlers in this movie, that it would have somewhat of a budget. Boy, was I wrong. Boy, was I wrong. Like, this is one of the worst put together movies I've ever seen. Every aspect.
Let's first off, let's begin with the opening credits with the most outrageously bad title image I've ever seen in a film.
Oh my god! It looked like it was in like 144p.
It was, yeah, really, like it was like so pixelated you could barely read it.
Was there butt rock playing over the
Oh,
title
of course.
sequence?
Of course
course.
it was. Oh, and the funniest part is it was diegetic butt rock. Because at one point we see a
Well,
drummer in the background.
Yeah, what was that about?
Like the opening, so the opening scene, they're like at a high school gym where there's like less than 40 people in the crowd, and there's just like a fucking like guy playing the drums in the background.
Yeah, the whole credit sequence is like, looks like it was shot on somebody's camcorder at just like a wrestling event in a high school in the middle of nowhere, like Nebraska or something.
It was West
well, yeah,
Virginia.
the movie was shot in West Virginia.
Very fitting.
Which is very fitting.
Well,
but
if
it's
you
just
know
like,
anything about independent wrestling and like, well, I guess now we're in North Carolina. This is kind of the part of the country, Virginia, West Virginia. It's exactly what you saw in the movie. Like
there's a lot of wrestlers
gyms,
from North Carolina too.
30, 40 people, like.
And for
shitty.
some reason, fucking Shane Douglas and Roddy Piper and stuff are like at this event. But yeah, it cuts to the evil promoter character who just is Cody Knotts, and his name in the movie is also Cody Knotts.
Was that his real hair?
Looked
like a wig.
It looks bad.
It looks
Can't
like a really
be,
bad
right?
wig.
I must feel worse for him if it is his actual hair.
He had, to me, he looked like pawn shop Peter Jackson. Like that was the vibe that I was getting off of him. Like he's kind of fat, you know, he's got like this sort of shoulder length gray hair, this like little gross like mustache and goatee. He just looks like Peter Jackson if Peter Jackson wasn't a famous filmmaker and ran a pawn shop in West Virginia.
Or ran a mud show independent wrestling promotion.
Right. But yeah, in that introductory shot, there's just a guy playing drums behind him. Just like, what the fuck?
For no reason.
And it starts with Shane Douglas killing a guy.
No, because you have to give a reason why.
Well, yeah, he kills a guy with a tombstone pile driver because he caught the guy making out with his girlfriend, his much, much younger girlfriend in the back.
What was this wrestler's name that he murdered in the ring?
They just call him Billy.
Billy? You know what his full name was? I caught it.
What was it?
Brutalizer Billy.
Brutalizer Billy. Okay.
Oh, Jesus.
So yeah, Shane
The
Douglas.
most independent wrestler name.
Shane Douglas kills Brutalizer Billy with a tombstone pile driver, and that sets the whole chain of events in motion. Brutalizer Billy's inexplicably Irish brother Angus
I still don't get why he had an Irish brother.
Me either, because we hear Billy talk at the beginning and he's just like an American
He's a dude from West Virginia.
And then his brother is like this faux hawk Irish guy with too much eyeliner, carrying like a cane that has like a panther. You know what it was? I think they ripped off a jaguar hood ornament and put it on the end of a cane because that's what it looks like.
Yeah, it definitely looked like that.
And so the evil Angus does some sort of black magic ritual to create an army of zombies, explicitly for getting revenge on the franchise Shane Douglas.
And man, that scene too is like really uncomfortable. Like,
it's very
not
rapey.
bad,
It's
man.
very rapey.
Yeah.
Like, I immediately checked out. Like, you know, if it wasn't for like that,
It's like
the
watching a
misogyny
movie
in
with a
this
family
movie,
and,
I'd
like,
give it like
there's a
a
sex
much
scene.
higher
The
rating.
build up
Cringe.
to that scene too is so bizarre.
Yeah, it's
because
not great.
she's at like the hospital and
she was
she's
a nurse.
looking
Yeah.
in this little mirror that she has putting on her makeup, and it like breaks and
The mirror
like,
shatters and
There's
there's
smoke coming out of
smoke
it.
comes out of it.
yeah, there's just like
Never any explanation.
black smoke pouring out of the mirror, and like you see like a stretcher with like a body on it covered behind her, and you think, oh, it's gonna be a zombie or something, and she goes over to it and it's just like some guy and he's like, gotcha, and then runs inside the hospital.
So the mirror just doesn't get any
So
explanation.
no, Irish Angus like comes
Teams up with the
out of
bus
the parking
driver.
lot and
Teams up with
Tez Jaguar. Tez Jaguar.
Which is a great wrestling name if you ever want to use that as a wrestler.
Honestly,
name.
I was so confused by the Tez Jaguar character because like his uniform, he looks like a rent-a-cop or something.
Yeah.
You know, he's wearing like a rent-a-cop
He was
uniform.
like a
And
prison bus driver.
it's got like the name tag on it that says Tez Jaguar, but then like later he's driving the bus that takes the wrestlers to the abandoned prison.
Honestly,
he can't work for the Department of Corrections because the prison is abandoned. There's
Right.
nobody there.
Honestly, I thought Tez Jaguar was a used car salesman.
He's very confusing. He's just there a few times, and I'm extremely unsure of what his role in the whole thing is. Because a couple of times it seems like he's conspiring with Angus, but then he gets killed by zombies when he's with Kurt Angle later or something.
When they get to the abandoned prison, he like cuts a promo essentially.
Yeah.
Saying like, unlike wrestling, these are predetermined events.
This is a fight for your life.
That's not what wrestling is.
Yeah, they just got these
This
like
is not what any of these old wrestlers signed up for. They didn't sign up to shoot.
Yeah, they
signed up to have predetermined.
If you win and survive,
safe
you'll
matches.
get wealth beyond your wildest imagination.
Which there was no wealth. Where's the
$40
wealth?
whole dollars and a
Right.
buy one get one free coupon to Applebee's.
Well, like Angus came to Cody Knotts to like book the show,
Yeah.
and he handed him like.
And for some reason, you wanted to get a bunch of stars.
Well,
which
no,
also didn't make any
he
sense.
paid him. He handed him like a stack of like fives. He probably handed him like $130 to put together this card, and
I
he's
love
just
that
like
the stars
the
they
movie.
could find was
he's just like I want
Roddy
Shane.
Piper.
He's like I want Shane Douglas and like some other people, but I mostly just want Shane Douglas. And then the promoter's just like I can get you Roddy Piper and Matt Hardy and Kurt Angle
and Matt Hardy's girlfriend.
and Matt Hardy's girlfriend, and it's like, well,
and
why?
Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Oh yeah,
Don't
and
forget about
Hacksaw
I
Hacksaw
can get
Jim
this
Duggan.
famous penthouse playmate.
Why are you getting these people?
Yeah,
though?
like-
he didn't ask for that. He just wants revenge on Shane Douglas. So they just get all of these other washed up wrestlers and be like, yeah, you're gonna go do a match in an abandoned prison in West Virginia. And they're like, oh yeah, cool, $40, fuck yeah, I need beer money. Like,
What could go wrong?
there's that scene where they're on the way to the prison where they like stop at they're like a truck stop pizzeria or something like that. And
Oh, God, I forgot about that.
And
there's that other girl who
There was the redhead who was Piper's girlfriend.
right, but
and
what
then
did
there
she
was the
get
black-haired
what
girl
did she
that-
get brought in for? Like she
The black-haired girl?
No, the red-haired girl.
She's just Piper's girlfriend.
No,
I guess.
because she
she
met
was the marketing person.
she met with
because
Cody
there's
Knotts,
that
and there's
really
that
Weinstein-y.
that
like-
scene, yeah, where she also seems really into it, and it's really uncomfortable because like she's having to interact with the guy who wrote this. And and she's like just making all of these like really gross sexual innuendos, and he's like getting really handsy with her, and she's like, do you want me
It
on
was-
the team?
I think it was a play on like kind of there's like old stories. It's kind of like the same thing like with like Hollywood producers, directors, where like
The Weinstein.
Yeah,
like the
well,
Weinstein,
it's-
like the casting couch kind of thing. Like, oh, you need to kind of like I guess wrestling promoters used to do that, even though I don't really think they did.
No,
I'm
it's
sure some of them did.
it's
but-
super sleazy and gross, and I don't understand like what her character's purpose is other than to become Roddy Piper's love interest, even though she's like 25 years younger than him. Shane Douglas's girlfriend like throws a drink on her in the truck stop pizzeria, so then Roddy Piper just like spits on her.
Spits in her face.
Yeah, Roddy Piper
Like,
just
I sat down, like, I remember stopping during the movie and being like, I came here for wrestlers versus zombies, and instead I get, like, Roddy Piper spitting in a woman's face.
right.
Like, what the fuck am I watching? What is this
I know,
movie?
man. I already knew that we were in for a bad time at that point, but like after that, I was just like, oh my god.
Yeah, it's
this is-
Also, if you like,
Rough.
as far as the dialogue in this film, like think of WWE dialogue, but 10 times worse.
oh yeah,
Somehow,
Like 10 times
yeah.
cringier.
somehow.
I
Like,
didn't think it could be done, but
no.
It is.
And it's all like pretty much the entire movie is ADR'd really badly.
Yes.
Why every single time the director's character talk, he only came out through like the
Oh
left,
yeah,
like, the left
he was.
speaker.
We were listening to it in surround sound, and for some reason, Cody Knotts was the only person who was mixed in such a way that he was only coming out of the left channel. Every other character was mixed stereo, and it wasn't in just one scene. It was every scene that Cody
every time
Knotts
he
was in.
talked.
Every time he talked, just his voice was coming out of the left channel. Just one of many just baffling decisions. The cinematographer is also the guy who edited, and I think the cinematography and the editing are maybe the two worst things about the movie.
Oh yeah.
Most of the movie is like they use single source lighting in a horror movie, and it's just all so dark you can't tell what's going on. There's a lot of shit that happens outside later, like in the woods, in like a park, and it's very obvious that they lit it just like somebody pulled their car up and turned the headlights on. Like there's no backlighting at all. It all looks like shit. It's all the dark stuff, like the ISO is cranked way up so it's super grainy, and there's just jump cuts
I was
all
gonna
over
say
the
there's
place.
a jump cut every 10 seconds.
There's just jump cuts all over the place. Like I can't
some of them
believe.
really, 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 really bad.
And apparently the redheaded chick, who's Roddy Piper's love interest, was like the cinematographer's like teacher.
Apparently, she's
Really?
like the
Yeah.
front runner to be Pennsylvania's next governor too, is what I heard.
Right, which is really bizarre. I don't know how she's ever gonna win that race when this movie exists. All her campaign opponent has to do is point to this movie and be like, is this really who you want to be the governor of Pennsylvania?
I rest my case.
I rest my, yeah, just
Roddy Piper's
just
spinning
run
up face.
just run an ad where they just play this movie beginning to end on TV, and at the end the opponent is just like, I'm such and such and I approve this message. That would be it.
Character
Remember
I
what the hell
liked.
happens.
The amateur wrestler with dreads who
Oh, the parkour guy.
who did it, the parkour guy with
Oh,
the
what was
weave
It was
his
called
name?
a jobber throughout the film.
yeah, who did all the parkour stuff. I liked him.
He had a goofy ass
I liked
name
him.
too, wrestling name. I can't remember it though.
Facade.
Facade.
Facade. The parkour guy,
Facade.
For some reason, like in this movie, Shane Douglas is like a homicidal maniac. Like he just keeps abandoning his friends to be killed by the zombies for literally no reason. He and fucking Jim Duggan are like running down a hallway and they're like well ahead of the zombies. Shane Douglas just like locks Hacksaw Jim Duggan out of the room for no reason. Like they had
What a
plenty
dick.
of time for both of them to get in the room, and Shane Douglas just locks him out, and so Jim Duggan dies, and then he locks Facade out of a room, and he's like, jobbers always die, or something like that, which, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But then Facade uses his parkour to escape, which is really good because he's not very good at parkour,
Yeah,
but they treat it like he's extremely good at parkour.
Which is the best part, honestly. It's weird, man. Like, Shane Douglas is played up like the hero in, like, a solid amount of the first half of the
Yeah,
movie.
his tone is all
like,
over
there's
the
a
goddamn
point
place.
where
He turns heel halfway through the movie.
he's
'Cause
like
he's,
at
'cause
his.
he's always a dick.
There's a weird point where he's like at his house with his family.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
like talking
God.
about how he's gonna go back
What the hell was up with the whole family thing too? Like that had no payoff.
He's
That
gonna
had
go
absolutely no
back into the
payoff.
ring for one last match, and his family's like, "No, don't do it." And he has like an 8-year-old nephew or something.
Yeah, he's like arm wrestling with his nephew, and then he goes outside for like 2 minutes, and he goes back inside, and the whole family has been killed by zombies just out of nowhere. I won't say it's for no reason, because at the end, where they have the fight scene in the parking lot, they have each one of his family members individually come at him like as a zombie, and he has to kill them one by one.
Speaking of, I think we can summarize about the majority of the zombie fight scenes in this
It
film.
was like a
as-
kung fu movie where they just came at the wrestlers one at a
One
time.
at a time.
Exactly.
yeah.
They're all one at a time zombies.
I will say one of my favorite parts of this movie is seeing people use using wrestling moves
Like
to
lucha.
kill zombies.
Yeah,
Like,
I did think that was
not
pretty
enough
fun.
of that,
Like,
honestly, yeah.
the
Self-defense lucha.
where it didn't work for me is that they were also doing like wrestling punches on the zombies, which naturally look really fake as it is when they're like hitting
because
each other.
the only three people who were good at throwing punches in that movie was Piper, Douglas, and Hacksaw.
Well, there's
Matt Hardy threw some really bad fucking punches in that movie.
There's one part where Roddy Piper like beats a zombie to death with like a pot. I was reading that apparently when he did that, he gave the guy a concussion with the pot because he was actually just bashing him over the head. And it put the guy in the hospital, and they went to, like, the crew went to, like, visit him in the hospital, and they gave him the pot as a souvenir. Like, here's a pot. You can hold on to it and say that Roddy Piper gave you a concussion with it. Yeah, man, like, honestly, the wrestlers fighting zombie stuff was not as fun as it could have been.
There were moments of greatness.
There was three good things about this movie, and it all involved the fighting scenes. There was
True.
Okay, there was Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle was brought in after all the wrestlers were brought in for some reason, and he ran into some zombies
as like a special appearance.
And so he started suplexing a bunch of zombies and doing his Kurt Angle thing, and then he got a zombie in the ankle lock, and twisted the ankle and ripped his leg
his
and
foot
off,
off.
and then he beat the fuck out of
awesome.
another zombie with the torn off.
That was dope.
That was one of the high points.
The second one was the gay porn star wrestler. They were all running in the hallway.
Was that the
and
one?
He was fighting through. He was like the really tall guy with like the Ricochet chest tattoo
and
he had
the gold shorts
he had the hole in
with
his
the
ass.
hole in the bottom.
He had the hole in his ass.
That makes sense.
They were all running in the hallway. He's like, I will stay back and fight. And then like he took a zombie over his head and like ripped it in half.
That
like
was
all
fun,
the
too.
blood
That was
and like
dope.
shit like fell on his head and shit.
That was maybe
pretty
the
cool.
best effects of the movie. Like most of the blood and guts are just like very obviously like corn syrup and like red jello and stuff. But the part where he ripped the zombie in half, it looked like they might have actually gotten some like pig intestines or something. They spent all of their effects budget on that one shot. The other guy, it wasn't the gay porn star guy, was it? Who's just like holding the door closed, and he tells them, he's like, "Go, I got this."
It was the porn
It
star.
was him.
Yeah.
He's like, "Go, I got this." And Roddy Piper's like, "Yeah, you got this." And they leave, and the door immediately bursts open, and he just gets killed by the zombies. Okay, also, let's take a second to mention the other promoter guy, like the Joe Dirt looking guy, and like the really scrawny dude in like the baggy blue suit with like the nasty mullet and the little mustache, and that the redheaded chick just fucks him for literally no reason.
I was about to say, like,
man,
I was
that
about to
made
say,
me
like,
so
why did they just go in
uncomfortable.
like a broom closet for like no reason besides the fuck? But it was just like she literally showed up, they saw each other, and then they just went in the fucking closet, and then you
Nothing.
never
Well,
saw
yeah,
them
she
getting out, but
said-
they were just like out for no
Nothing
reason.
is more erotic than Joe Dirt after all.
Well, I don't remember exactly what happened, but she was like, "Let me make it up to you." Like she had done something wrong.
Oh, no. I remember exactly what it was.
all right.
Like, they walk into the room, and she's like, "Oh, fuck, blood on the floor. Ah, gee, y'all."
That's right.
There's
That's
blood.
right. That's right.
And then, like, she puts her finger in it, which also, like, what the fuck?
And then he walks up and puts his finger in
And he's
it.
like, "This is just corn
And he
syrup.
tastes
Quit
it.
freaking out." And she's like, "Oh, sorry, I freaked out over seeing blood on the floor. Let me make it up to you by fucking you in this
in
closet."
the broom
like,
closet.
No,
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense
No.
at all,
No.
and
They
it's
just
awful.
They just did it to do it. Like
Yeah.
It's gross.
Like, she didn't do anything wrong. Like, why is she making it up to him? Like,
No,
nothing
exactly.
makes sense about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's totally broken, stupid, creepy logic. I didn't like that part either. My problem with like the fighting stuff is like there are a few really fun moments like you mentioned, but a lot of it was just like zombies running at them one at a time and like whacking them with like a crowbar, or the redheaded chick had like a really dull machete. And then it's like they get out of the prison at the end
with
and they
butt
go
rock
to
playing in the background.
and
keep
yeah,
in mind.
well, oh my god, we'll get to
We'll
get
get
to
to
the
that.
butt rock. We'll get to the butt rock. But they go to the park at the end, and there's just like this incredibly extended fight scene where it just alternates between there being like a million zombies and there being like 2 zombies. It's like there will be like a wide shot of like all these zombies running through the park, and then it'll cut to the wrestlers and there's like 1 zombie coming at them and they beat that zombie up, and then there's another one, and then they cut to another wide shot and there's fucking Angus with his hood ornament cane, and he's just got like a mob of zombies behind him, and they cut to the wrestlers and they're beating up like 1 zombie.
Or like they would charge through like a crowd of zombies, and like they would just be slowly going through it as they're like hitting zombies on each side, but it looked so like it looked really bad.
Yeah, it
this
looked like
movie
shit.
has some of the weirdest editing I've seen in a while. Like, we should emphasize that it was done by the same guy who did the cinematography, which was also awful. But, like, this movie had some of the most bizarre cuts.
This editor had no understanding of continuity editing whatsoever. Like, the cuts do not make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's like one shot where like a character has blood, like Roddy Piper has blood all over his face, then it cuts back to it, and there's
and he
none.
just doesn't. Yeah, there's just like so many continuity errors, so many jump cuts, just like so fucking many jump cuts. I don't know how they let this person both shoot and edit this film. If I was
I have an idea why.
If I was Cody Knotts, I would like see what this dude is doing and be like, okay, I'm sorry, this is too bad. Like, we need to hire somebody else. Like, first year film students are better shooters and editors.
Yeah, I've seen
than
student
this guy.
films that were shot and edited better than this movie by far.
My student films were shot and edited better than this movie. Like, it is so unbelievably bad. It's like the production value is truly that of like a Neil Breen film. It gave me super like hard Double Down vibes, not because the movies have anything to do with each other, but just how like bafflingly bad they are.
Specifically, there's one scene where a guy is watching like a CC camera footage of like one of the wrestlers getting mauled.
Yeah.
And it's obvious that the TV is off the whole time. And it's like, this is straight up just Neil Breen shit.
Right, it's
here.
like in Double Down where he's like working on multiple laptops that are all turned off. Like, it gave me those same kind of vibes where it's just like somebody who really thought that they were making a great film who just has no understanding of filmmaking whatsoever. It has that same kind of sincerity, which I will say does make it charming to a certain extent in how bad it is, because it does have that sincerity of like them trying to make a good movie and just like failing.
Honestly,
so
if it wasn't for the
badly.
misogyny, I would have been totally fine with it.
Yeah, I feel the same way, Cleve. Like, it's the creepiness that
It
takes
was
the points off for
unnecessary
me.
molestation and like
Yeah.
If it wasn't for that, like, I would be
scenes.
so on board. Like, I would have been like, oh yeah, it's like The Room with wrestling. Like, fuck yeah, sign me up. But
Did we mention this movie was made in 2014, not 2004, not 1994, 2014?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like,
It's so skeezy.
you mentioned, Tease, like, the fight scenes are kind of just boring.
They get
Like,
monotonous because
it's
they're
weird
very
how-
the same.
Very repetitive.
Yeah.
Like,
Even though this movie is an hour and a half, by the end of it, it felt like 3 hours
yeah.
at least.
We were all checking our watches.
I felt like I watched a WWE 3-hour.
Well, yeah, because it's like all the fights become so samey, and at the end they try to inject like all of these like really sickly, sweet, sentimental moments. Like there's that really bad one where they're in the woods and the redheaded chick is like, Roddy, are we gonna make it through this? He's like, hey, pretty lady, it's not about getting knocked down. It's about getting back up again. That's all that really matters. It's like, that has nothing to do with what she asked. That has nothing to do with
And then
it.
immediately after that, it cuts to like an American flag.
Oh my god.
The American flag at the end.
What
when they
an amazing finale.
When they finally defeat evil Angus.
Which what a final boss battle that was. It was just Roddy. It was like him attacking Piper. Piper took his cane and beat the fuck out of him, and then all
like
the
choked him
died.
out. Yeah, and then
And we got the finale of him standing with the American flag behind him, which we obviously stood up and
we all saluted.
clapped for,
Yeah,
you
no,
know?
like you
You
do. You have to, you know, if you don't.
Amazing Grace.
Okay, we'll get. All right, yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the music. The entire soundtrack of the film is like all butt rock, primo 2012 butt rock.
And I'm pretty sure they were buddies. They were college buddies of the director. Or something
Okay, well,
like
yeah,
that.
that's
There's a band
It was
called
like the same
Dead
two
in
bands.
5.
Dead in 5, and then there was another band. I can't remember what they were called, but we watched the credits and we saw that all of the music was by two different bands, and each one, and they had like song titles that like related to the movie.
They were all written and performed specifically for
this film, and each band had like between like 10 and 14 tracks. So they wrote and recorded 2 entire albums worth of butt rock just to score this 1 hour and a half Wrestlers vs. Zombies movie.
Yeah, well, and
Speaking
like,
of those titles, though, we have to bring up the one that really freaked me out. Like, because I caught the lyric for it, like, while it was playing, and I was like, is he saying what I think he's saying? And what was it? It was,
The final solution.
Yeah, there's like, it's the final solution! And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. He's not saying final solution, is he? Like,
yes.
And yes,
Like,
he was.
absolutely
Yes, he
was
was.
saying
It
final
reminds
solution.
me of, there's a part in Party Down, I think it's in the 2nd season, where they accidentally write a really racist song to perform at weddings, but they don't realize it's racist. That gave me hardcore similar vibes. But oh man, the lyricism in these songs was...
Oh, okay. There's only one that I remember, but there's one where it's a montage of like the redheaded chick like killing zombies with a machete, and the song is saying something to the extent of she was built for speed, she was built for me.
Well, like a line or two later, they're like, she's like a Jaeger bomb.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah.
She's like a Jaeger bomb.
In a movie like this, I wouldn't even mind some butt rock, just because like so many wrestlers' entrance music is just butt rock. You know, like so many wrestlers come out to butt rock.
I mean, Disturbed was like one of the stock artists.
Oh yeah, well
NXT.
no, Disturbed did they used a fucking Disturbed song for
They still use a Shinedown song for Raw.
for NXT
2019.
Takeover. Yeah, that's right. They do still use that. But
And
this
before that,
is
it was Papa Roach who did the Raw song.
this is and this is not. We should emphasize that the WWE had nothing to do with this film.
Yes.
This was not a WWE
This-
production.
this
This
actually
is
was-
no Marine 6.
It's no Marine
This is
6.
I don't think wrestling had to do with it, but besides the fact that there was wrestlers in it.
Right.
Like this movie was funded by a Kickstarter, and like I think some wrestlers paid for it too.
Yeah.
like, to have it
Man,
made,
like.
which I feel bad for whoever.
I feel
put
bad
money
for.
into
I just
that.
feel bad for all the wrestlers who are in this, but most
Yeah.
particularly
Besides
Roddy.
Kurt was awesome.
Yeah, no, Kurt was great.
Kurt stole the show.
And like
Yeah.
realistically, like Kurt showed up for probably like 3 hours of like I read
And
that
they just said they probably just told him kick some of these zombies' asses, and then you're going to be a zombie.
I read
Like,
that they shot this movie in like 16 days, and Roddy Piper and Shane Douglas were on set for 13 of the 16 days. I just feel so bad for Roddy Piper because like he died like a year after this, and like
and he
that
wasn't
was
noticeably in rough shape, but he was in really bad shape
but the
at
fact
that time.
and also the fact that he was in this movie, like that he needed the money bad enough at the end of his life that he had to be in fucking Pro Wrestlers versus Zombies. Matt Hardy I can see a little bit because like that was a few years ago, and he was doing a lot of drugs and shit, and
he was actually clean at this point.
Oh, was he clean at that point? But still, like, that was before, like, Matt Hardy's, like, real resurgence with, like, the broken gimmick and stuff like that.
Yeah, if you look at the broken thing, I could totally see someone's going up to Matt Hardy's like, hey, you want to do this pro wrestler versus zombie movie? And he would just, like, it would totally be something in Matt Hardy's wheelhouse.
And, like...
Because he just likes doing wacky...
And I can see
like, this time frame, 2014 or so, was, like, peak Walking Dead, you know, era.
That's very true.
Like, this was
Zombies
when
were popular,
zombie madness was full swing. What I will
say,
the
makeup
too,
effects are shit. All of the zombies just look like people
the one
with
exception is I thought Kurt Angle Zombie
Kurt was awesome.
Decent.
He looked, he looked decent
with the like torn skin on his. Yeah.
No, he looked okay. He wasn't in enough of it. But all of the other zombies looked like shit. They just looked like...
Zombie Hacksaw was alright, too.
Yeah, that was okay as well.
When I was watching the interview with the director, he was talking about how him and Rowdy Piper got in, like, verbal argument on set.
Can't imagine
why.
And
at one point, they just got, like, in each other's faces in, like, a screaming match. And... later that day, Roddy pulled the director aside and was like, yeah, now the rest of the crew respects you. You're welcome.
Oh my god. They fucking worked the crew into respecting the director. The fucking incredible. Roddy did the job to the director so the crew would respect him. Yeah, that's so sad.
That is a professional right there.
That's a professional.
Yeah,
I mean...
Right?
You can say one thing.
That's getting someone over, I guess.
You can say a lot about, you can say a lot about Roddy Piper, but you can never say he's a fucking professional. Man, like, seriously, R.I.P. His fucking couple of appearances in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Which is the only thing I knew him from.
Are my fucking favorite shit. Like, his character on that show is one of my favorites. The maniac, the legitimately insane wrestler. Yeah, just like, all of his in-ring work was so great, and he's so good in They Live, and it's sad to see him at like the end of his life and his career,
because this was fucking
like pro wrestler.
This was like one of the last things he did. Yeah. Besides, he had a podcast, and he did like I think like 10 or 12 episodes of his podcast, but like this is like the last major like on camera thing that he did in his life.
Yeah, it's really sad. Oh, the one more thing on the butt rock note. At the very end, Cleveland had a really great moment during the credits. There was some other music playing like during the credits, and right as it's fading out, like Cleveland had been in the bathroom and he walks back in. He's like, and the next song is gonna be a butt rock song. And right as he says that, a butt rock cover of Amazing Grace starts playing.
Oh my god, it was incredible.
Amazing Grace.
My favorite part of it is there was like metal screams underneath it, like.
And then after that, they rounded it all out with a butt rock cover of Black Betty.
Oh, and the credits were like 20 minutes long.
Yeah, it was insane. I think it's just because they credited everybody who donated to the Kickstarter, which I mean, I guess
and they
like you're supposed to do.
Every single extra, which I
oh my
guess
god,
there was
it was
a lot
so
of
long.
Guys they had play zombies and like crowd members, and
it was so fucking long. The credits went on for. Yeah, probably like 20 minutes.
Had to pad out that length.
How are there so many people who worked on this fucking movie?
Honestly, like,
it's so bad.
When I saw, like, there's no fucking way they had this many people under, like, that they were paying some kind of money or compensation to be in this film.
Well, they paid it in that credit.
It's cigarettes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They did credit at the end who provided the cigarettes.
They credit Papa John's in West Virginia and the guy who provided the cigarettes. Probably to Roddy Piper.
Oh my god, fucking amazing.
Legendary.
This film is a very mixed bag because there are a lot of really fun moments because of how bad it is, but in the end it's just so fucking boring. Like, I don't think I would be enthusiastic to go back and rewatch this movie. Not like I would for something like The Room or Double Down.
After like 2 zombie fight scenes, it was all right. But then after like you got like maybe like 12 more zombie fight scenes, and it just got really
honestly, I was out when Kurt Angle died and his zombie died.
I would probably
I was done after the Matt Hardy zombie fight.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
That was when I tapped out.
If I watched this again, I would probably turn it off.
Like
after,
when they got to the
Matt
woods,
Hardy
when they
fight.
got to the woods, that was like it got too much because it just wouldn't.
So
end.
many false
it just
finishes.
Wouldn't end.
Yeah, it just wouldn't fucking stop. Can we also briefly talk about how when Angus does the ritual at the beginning, after he like kidnaps that lady and like fondles her.
Oh, that's never explained.
And cuts her heart out and eats it, and then he like looks into the mirror and there's all of a sudden this old guy who's like just in the mirror who's like looking out at Billy. He's like, excellent, now you can avenge your brother Billy. And he's never seen again in the rest of the movie.
Well, he has seen one more time at the very, very end.
There's like a flash cut when Billy is dying, like you see
Angus.
Angus is dying, you like see that dude's face. But like,
who
is he?
Well, then during like the shitty nighttime fight scene, remember like he's like the villain is like, I need more help, and then you hear his voice and he's like, yes, then you shall be granted. And then that's when the Civil War zombies come up and big air quotes on that.
I forgot about
because they're wearing blue jeans.
Oh my god, just wearing blue jeans.
So my excuse for it was that they're Civil War reenactor zombies.
Yeah.
Apparently, when they were filming that scene in the park, it was like 35 degrees and like
Pennsylvania.
West Virginia. But apparently I think it was Shane Douglas got like really sick after filming.
Well, he was wearing a t-shirt and like his wrestling tights,
they were all,
which I'm pretty sure were his same, like the exact same shirt and the exact same wrestling tights that he wore in the 90s.
They were all like
pretty.
They were all like pretty scantily clad. Like Roddy Piper was wearing like a leather jacket and jeans. Yeah. But like Shane Douglas was wearing his tights and a t-shirt. The
Hacksaw was in his full tights. Like
Hacksaw was in his full tights, but he wasn't at the park. He got killed in the prison.
Yeah.
But like the redheaded chick like was wearing like a sleeveless like blazer, like she ripped the sleeves off of her blazer and she had like that skirt that was like torn up the sides. Like it must have been fucking cold. And yeah, apparently Shane Douglas got really fucking sick like after filming that. He got like an infection or something for having to be out there in the cold filming that. And it's like, for what? For that? Like getting that sick and like having to go to the hospital for that? Embarrassing. It's an embarrassment. Y'all want to rate this?
Yeah.
I just want to say one thing they missed though. So when they first get to the prison, there's a band that's setting up like with the ring, and all of a sudden like out of nowhere like a bunch of zombies just attack the band, and I'm like, okay, if the band comes back as zombies and they're playing, this movie will be awesome. And there was no zombie musicians. Yeah. I was so disappointed.
I'm taking off a point just for that.
Well, that actually does bring up a good point, and it's something that I mentioned while we were watching it, is that, and there's one other moment where they had a chance to be, like, really clever, and they didn't, just because they're not smart enough. Like, when Hacksaw Jim Duggan is introduced, he's just, like, at the prison when they get there.
He's already there.
And he's got, like, a 2x4 with, like, a glove on it, and he, like, waves it at Roddy Piper, and, you know, they, like, go and talk. And then he becomes a zombie later, and Roddy Piper finds him, and he's like gnawing on like an arm. And I thought for sure they were gonna have him like take the arm and like wave at Roddy Piper with it and have it be like a callback to when he's first introduced, and they didn't.
No. They missed a lot of things.
They just missed multiple that and the fucking zombie band.
If you're doing a movie called Pro Wrestling versus Zombies, you had to go full fucking in.
That scene where Hacksaw got killed gave me hardcore Of Mice and Men vibes. So, like, honestly,
having to put down Lenny.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. They did treat it very similarly. They treated it like Roddy Piper was putting down a big simple boy. Okay, yeah,
we're ready.
Let's rate it. I guess I'll start. I was unsure whether I was gonna give this one a serious or an ironic rating, because like, so a lot of times, like, I really enjoy bad movies, so I feel bad giving them like shitty ratings. But honestly, like, I think this is one of those movies where you can really catch the highlights on YouTube, find the few moments that are worth watching. I can't really say I recommend it as a whole. It's just too much of a mess, and like, it's super sleazy, and like the creepy, rapey, misogynistic stuff is really, really uncomfortable. Yeah. And like,
Yikes.
how
unnecessary,
how badly done the movie is just distracting. So I can't give it an ironic rating. I gotta give it an honest rating. I'm gonna give it a 1.5 out of 5 pods. Can't really recommend this one.
Same for me. 1.5. Like, yeah, the misogyny really fucking killed it for me. Like, otherwise, like, I could have had a better time. Like, I know I could have got a higher rating from me.
Since this is wrestling, I'm gonna use the star rating.
Okay.
And I'm gonna give this movie minus all the stars in the universe, and keep in mind the universe is infinite.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, if I found this movie completely irredeemable, I would just give it a half star. But, like, I don't find it completely irredeemable.
No,
like,
me
the
either.
Kurt Angle stuff is fun. I love the scene where he ankle locks
rips his leg off.
Yeah, and rips the leg off and that's super fun. And there's a couple of really fun things and fun moments in this movie. But as a whole, I totally agree with you guys. Like, it's weirdly super misogynistic and, like,
it's boring.
That's the biggest thing. Like, I don't mind low budget stuff.
There's a lot of downtime.
It was very Trauma-esque at times, but, like, at least Trauma can be batshit and fun, you know? Like,
yeah, the greatest sin I think just about any movie can make is being boring.
Yeah,
like,
and
bad can be redeemable if it's fun, but you can't redeem boring.
100%. And for that reason, I'm gonna, just mirror everyone else and give it a 1.5. I think, like, catch the clips on YouTube because it's fun, but, like, don't feel obligated to watch the whole movie.
Less than an hour and a half of your life on this thing.
Yeah, no, it's not worth it. I'm
sure all the copies are buried in the middle of the desert somewhere.
I was gonna say, like, you might enjoy this movie if you like really like butt rock. You might get something out of it. But yeah, like, YouTube, catch the highlights, the fun stuff, leave the rest.
If you can find that Kurt Angle scene, then I suggest
I'm sure.
finding that scene on YouTube.
I bet if you go on YouTube and look up Pro Wrestlers vs. Zombies Kurt Angle, he's in the movie for like maybe 3 minutes total, if that. Like, you can definitely find the part that he's in.
That's for me. That's where the movie
the best part.
That's where the movie peaks.
Yeah, no. I agree. Is Kurt Angle's little cameo. Okay, yeah, that's a unanimous 1.5 out of 5 pods for Pro Wrestlers vs. Zombies.
We do have a sponsor this week.
Oh, we do have a sponsor.
Yeah. So this episode was brought to you by Frample & Sons Pet Rocks. Frample's Rocks. They're rocks for your butt. Butt rocks.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
Yeah, so next week our episode is going to be on Pet Sematary, an original versus remake, where we'll be talking about the 1989 version, and we'll be going to see the brand new adaptation that just came out. So that's going to be exciting. I really like the original Pet Sematary.
I have never seen it.
And I'm very excited for the new movie because it looks dope. So I'm hoping that next week's episode will be a little bit more positive than this one. But fuck it, baby. It's WrestleMania weekend, biatch! It's a new day. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Brock Lesnar for Universal Champion for the rest of my existence.
Fuck Brock Lesnar. By the time this episode comes out, WrestleMania will be over and we'll know.
And Brock Lesnar will still be champion.
One of my favorite tweets of all time is welcome. It was someone on Twitter being like, "Welcome to Twitter. Here's your copy of the Communist Manifesto and a season pass to Raw for some reason."
Fuck, I would take it. Yeah, so if you like the show, speaking of Twitter, you can follow us on Twitter at PodPeoplePod. If you want to hear us do more of this stuff, then go on Apple Podcasts, leave us a nice rating and review, hit those 5 stars, leave us a little blurb or something. Do the thing. Follow us on Letterboxd, you know that whole spiel. You can follow me on Twitter at Mr. Van Awesome.
I'm at Mr. Sheets.
If you like to see wacky wrestling tweets, because I don't do a lot of horror stuff, my Twitter handle is infinite_Quin with 1 N.
Do you want to plug your the writing and stuff you do as well?
Oh yeah, if you're a fan of Wisconsin sports, specifically the Green Bay Packers, Milwaukee Bucks, Milwaukee Brewers, you could check out I actually do some wrestling writing as well. You could check me out at creamcitycentral.com, all one word, lowercase.
All right.
Hell yeah.
Cleve?
It stares back this week, going to ECGC!
Yeah, when this episode drops, it is a few days before ECGC.
If you're in
the North Carolina area, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, swing through ECGC.
We're going to be in the Indie Alley, rocking it out. We're going to be doing a whole cult thing. We're really excited. We got our hood shipped in today. It's going to be fun. We're really going to be culting it out. And we're going to have a demo of the game, too, so you can finally play It Stares Back, which we've been repping for months now.
And,
super excited.
If you come find us at ECGC and you mention that you listen to the podcast, we'll toss you a little something nice.
Oh yeah, for sure.
We'll give you something. So
big old hug for
me. If you're a fan of the show and a fan of video games and stuff, come out and support us at ECGC. Or if you can't come yourself, but you have friends in the area who might want to check that out,
send them to us.
Send them our way.
For more information on that, you can always follow Light Arc Studios on Twitter, or Studio on Twitter. Check us out, and my art station, Cleveland Mosier and/or Iron Prism.
Yep, that's right. All right, that'll bring us to the end of this episode. Thank you as always for listening. Thank you, Quinn, for joining us again. It was good to have you back on the show.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
And thanks for turning us on to this fucking shit show of a movie.
Yeah, keep in mind, I suggested this film to watch for all of us. This is my fault.
I had heard of it before as well, so when you suggested it, I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, let's do it. But it's fun. It's rare that our loves of horror and wrestling get to overlap. So
it's such a shitty film.
It's such a shitty film, unfortunately. But it's fun to talk about.
It had its moments.
Yeah, it had its moments. All right. Check back next week for Pet Cemetery. Come check us out at ECGC next week. You know the drill. Bye.